Hi, welcome to our new podcast, Fully Booked and Caffeinated. I'm
And
Heather.
I'm Kelsey, and we're excited to share our love of reading with you.
So, Kelsey and I met through a true crime book club that I started. It was based on a group of murderinos who all love to read. And then Kelsey and I bonded outside of book club with our trashy reality TV, looking at you, MTV. And we just became best friends who found out that we love more than reading, but reading is a pretty commonality for us.
We wanted to start a podcast about books because we both have been into reading since we were super young. I started reading chapter books in first grade. It was the only way to keep me busy when I was finished with my work, and my first grade teacher was really encouraging. She gave me books that I could do as busy work while the rest of the class was finishing up. So I started with Sweet Valley Twins, Goosebumps, and then as I got a little older, I moved into Fear Street, and I loved anything by R.L. Stine and Christopher Pike. Heather, how did you start?
So the story of my childhood that my mom and dad always said was that I could fully read a little kid book by the age of 3, which is wild. I don't know if that's true, but whatever, I like it. But my parents were always reading to me as a kid, so it just became a passion of mine. And I was a big fan. I don't know if anyone remembers, but Pizza Hut had a Book It program where you would come in, where you'd check off your book list and you'd get free pizza all the time. And I loved Pizza Hut and I loved reading, so it went really well together. And the books that I really liked growing up were The Babysitter's Club and Sweet Valley High. And then when I got into middle school, high school era, I started to get more into Goosebumps. And then, of course, Harry Potter was a big book for me. And that series definitely changed my life and reading. And then speaking of reading, my favorite genre, it's a mixed bag. I pretty much can read anything, but basically, since we started a true crime podcast, obviously I like thriller and mystery. We read both fiction and nonfiction in that book club, but mainly fiction. I also like romance, and I've been dabbling in fantasy recently, and it's actually something I really like. What about you, Kels?
I think right now, my biggest interest is mystery and psychological thrillers. That's definitely changed over the years, but that's what I'm most into right now, something that's keeping me thinking and interested and guessing, and I can't stop turning the pages.
Nice. And who about your favorite author these days?
Currently, my favorite author is Karen Slaughter. I'm obsessed with literally everything that she writes. She's super, super dark, and there are always very intense trigger warnings, but the way that she brings everything together and doesn't rush in the endings just really makes it worth all of the pain and the bad stuff you got to get through. What about you?
Well, I have to be honest, I actually have not read a Karen Slaughter book yet, so clearly we'll have to do an episode about her because you love her so much. When I was younger, I was really into Sarah Dessen and those young adult romance books, but currently I'm really into Sarah J. Maas. She does the fantasy book series that I've recently got into, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit, but I really like her. She's really good. And so, what are your top 3 books of all time?
Okay, this is an easy one. Top is Harry Potter and Prisoner of Azkaban. Hands down, best of the series. Even, dare I say, the best movie of the series also. I love it. That's one that I could read over and over and over and over again and never get tired of it. I also love White Oleander. I think it's written so poetically and so beautifully, and the movie was done really well, so everything that I was able to picture in my head when I was reading it, I saw played out in the movie, and I actually wasn't disappointed, which is a pretty rare thing when a book is turned into a movie. And then lastly, The Kite Runner. I cannot think of a book that made me think more, that made me cry more, that made me feel so many different emotions, besides the fact that the writing was just absolutely incredible. How about you? What are your top 3?
Well, ironically, my top Harry Potter book is Prisoner of Azkaban. So And I second what you said. It's also, dare I say, the best movie out of the entire movie series. And it was my favorite book. I just really loved Harry's relationship with Sirius Black. That was just like my favorite thing. And also, just the book was great. I really liked The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. That was definitely, it was a good book to get into the dystopian world, which there are other YA novels from that time that I was really into. And John Green's Looking for Alaska, which is a very heavy-hitting book. It's probably, I think, his best out of the ones that he's written so far. I do enjoy his books a lot. He's actually another author that I really like. But Looking for Alaska was a very captivating book, and, it dealt with suicide and growing up, and it was just a really, really, really good book. So, but as I was saying before, the series that is heading into my top, but it's not quite of all time, but it's definitely up there. The Sarah J. Maas recently, she's a series I can't stop thinking about. She has 5 books out so far. It's A Court of Thorn and Roses, and it's about fairies and stuff, but I like it. It's really good. The writing's really, really good. So it's definitely all over Book Talk. It's definitely one of those series that's taken off. Everyone is reading it, and she has 2 other series differently as well that have to do with the fairy universe that I'm slowly dipping my feet into. But it's really good. How about, what's this book that you can't stop thinking about recently?
Recently, I read Confessions by, I think I'm going to mess this up and I apologize, Kane Minato. And the reason I loved it so much is because I never would have picked it up. It didn't really sound that appealing to me when I read the back, when I saw the cover, but I had seen it on Book Talk, and one of the people that I follow rated it really highly, and I was like, okay, it's a small book, let me just give it a try, can't hurt. And there were so many twists and so many turns, and I was thinking about it days later, and I was remembering details days later that I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that the first time around. And that happened too. Like, I could not stop connecting dots. And I think the reason that I can't stop thinking about it is because I really was not even going to read it. And then it was just it just really surprised me. It was a happy, happy coincidence that I just decided to listen to Book Talk, which I usually do, but
That sounds good. Yeah, I actually haven't heard of that one. I'll have to add that to my ever-lending list of books to be read. It's a daunting pile. But so basically we just talked about how big, especially with Book Talk, has become, and how there aren't too many podcasts about books. And, our goal here is to pick a book that we'll both read, and we'll mix up the genres and the authors. We'll give background info about the book and author, go through, discuss the plot, and give our reviews. Some of the books we're going to do also had, a film or a TV series made, so we'll discuss the difference between the book and the film, do who we would have cast or who we would cast in books that should be made into movies. Just try to keep it fun and interesting, and just keep going over how much we love books.
Yeah, we could talk about it forever. And I totally agree. We'll try and keep it fresh, mix it up with some older books that we remember from our childhood, maybe something like one that's in my top 3 that you've never read, and vice versa, and then some of the new super popular ones, or ones that we know are going to be made into adaptations in the future, so that we can look forward to those. And it just gives us an excuse to talk about books even more than we already do.
Because the one book club wasn't enough. Now I need a book podcast. So the first book we're going to do is actually Verity by Colleen Hoover, which has taken over everyone's life. So, and especially now with the new collector's edition and the bonus chapter, that'll be fun to read and discuss. So we're really looking forward to doing this. Even if no one listens to it, it's fun for us to just talk about books and be cool. So, hope you guys enjoy.
Thanks.